Hello everybody, I am the Investigator, and welcome back to Angels with Scaly Wings. Now, I'm starting on the set screen to show that I don't believe he's been here before. He and his ice cream wagon have joined us on the set screen now. That was kind of cool, and I just wanted to show you that. I swear I don't remember seeing him there before. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But yeah, so I believe we were going to take the bandages to the facility in this episode. So we're going to go and do that, get that blood tested. I hope this is the right place. Y'all knock so hard. Can I help you? Yeah, I'm just dropping off this evidence on behalf of the police. From the Razor case, right? I already read the memo. Yeah. Yep. Well, here you go. Thanks, I'll get right to it. Visit the witness. No rest for the weary. Ooh. I like the design on this one a lot. Can I help you? You must be Ipsum, is that right? Sure. I'm working with the police, and I hope you can answer a few questions. Because I responded to your call for witnesses about last night, right? Yes. Alright, what do you want to know? Can you tell me what happened? Sure. I was running an experiment in my home. Does everyone do experiments in this world? Sure, I was running an experiment in my home laboratory and waiting for it to finish. Around 2 a.m., I suddenly hear a few bangs outside. They reminded me of small explosions. It sounded like they were coming from just around the corner. I see. Did nothing about this seem unusual to you? Not really. I know I've caused a few similar disturbances with my experiments before. If someone else decided to take up some home experimentation, they certainly have my approval. Besides, I wasn't in any position to abandon the experiment that was running at the time, or else it would have had a similar outcome. Thank you. I think that would be all. No problem. Oh. Thanks for all your help. Now that the facility has received the bandages, maybe we'll discover something new. I'll take care of the remaining tasks so you can take the rest of the day off. I'm sure you have things to do other than helping the police department. It's no problem, really. My trip to your ward wasn't supposed to be a vacation. Alright then, I'll see you next time. See you. After this fateful day, I was glad to finally have some sort of respite. I wandered into the kitchen and as I considered tonight's dinner. Should I cook something or order out? When I turned to the living room, I suddenly found my strength leaving me and collapsed to the floor. What the fuck is this? The next thing I saw was a blurry stone ceiling. As my eyesight slowly returned, I managed to sit up. I was in a cave, and before me stood a familiar, mysterious face. I apologize for the violence, but I can assure you it was the easiest way. Where am I? Is this your hideout? Just a temporary accommodation, so we can be undisturbed for this meeting. Someone else used to live here until recently. Do you know who I am? Well, you're not Razor. Good. What did it take for you to figure that out? Since you're not whispering anymore, I can hear it clearly in your voice. I had a feeling that you couldn't be him since the first time we met, though. Which first time are you talking about? The generator in the ceiling, when you pushed me. I see. You can call me the Administrator. No other humans are supposed to be here, though. I assume that's why you're wearing the mask. You don't want to be recognized. That is correct. Wherever you are, you also saved my life. On more than one occasion. Your presence here doesn't make any sense. You couldn't have come through the portal, the dragons would have noticed. This is where you are wrong. My arrival through the portal is what led the dragons to discover it in the first place. Is that so? When I crawled out from the hole in the earth that hid the portal, there were no guards to discover me. My appearance exposed the portal, but the dragons didn't know it was there yet. So you arrived even before Reza. That makes you the actual first human to come to this world. That is more true than you might think. Just who are you then? I may have arrived through the portal like you, but my story is very different. Before the fall of humanity, I was an engineer. I was part of a team that was formed to create bioweapons. Our task was to create these bioweapons in a country where their development hadn't yet been regulated or outlawed. These weapons were planned to be a low-cost alternative for poor countries to wage war, so they would no longer have to rely on expensive drones and machines for warfare. I was to set up the lab where our bioweapon development would take place. It was a clandestine operation, set to be in the middle of the wilderness. The laboratory was an independent research and living unit, and provided everything we needed without having to rely on external resources or even an existing power grid. Everything was to be teleported right into the middle of nowhere, with no traces or paper trail to follow, so international communities and law enforcement would have no idea of our operations. Our only connection to the outside world after setup would have been a two-way portal to our headquarters, who would provide everything we needed. While we already could teleport individual people, teleporting a whole building was another matter entirely. Our solution was matter compression technology, incredibly expensive, but operating in the gray market was also very lucrative. The technology behind it was much more complicated than even teleportation, despite being based on it. While teleportation works by utilizing black holes with a beginning and an end, compression technology relies on a loop, keeping matter in a sort of limbo state until the loop is broken. Working with black holes is very complicated to begin with, but this shape required much more finesse, and thus was much more expensive. I was to be sent alone to set up the lab and the portal so the rest of the team could arrive safely. In case you didn't know, it is possible to use a portal to send someone to a previously defined endpoint. Therefore, it is not required to have a portal at the destination to be sent there. But as you can imagine, this is also very dangerous. A single variable off by a fraction can mean the difference between landing safely at your destination and smothering in space. Of course, my employer did not want anything like that to happen, not necessarily for my own sake, but because of all the unfathomably expensive equipment I had with me. Regardless, something went wrong anyway. Despite all the checks and safeguards, they could only minimize the risk so much. Even if the risk is a fraction of a fraction, sometimes you're just that unlucky. And sometimes it turns out that your bad luck is a blessing in disguise. I arrived safely somewhere in the jungles of Earth, yet it was not the destination that had been planned. I knew something was off, but nevertheless I set to work immediately. At the very least, I could prepare the building. I would have shelter, and then I could begin preparations for our project. Getting the portal into working order would take more time, as it was a complicated process that could take several weeks. If things had gone wrong, as I suspected, I would at least be able to establish contact with headquarters after the portal had been set up, and not be able to return. While teleporting the lab to the wrong location was certainly a costly mistake, I was still lucky to have my life. Before long, I discovered the truth about the place I'd arrived. While I was still on Earth, it was not the Earth I knew. It was the Earth of 65 million years ago. We knew that by utilizing black holes for teleportation, time travel was a theoretical possibility. It was something even my company didn't dare to attempt though, as teleportation itself was still a very new technology. Yet here I was, 65 million years in the past, with a research station all to myself. The company would revel in the opportunity to study and profit from all the different life forms they could see. If only they knew about them. I spent the few weeks setting up the portal as planned, yet when I tried to reestablish contact with my employer, I was met with silence. Despite the time discrepancy, the portal should have been able to find my companies in the present. For a black hole, sending something through time is no different than sending something through space. However, when we built the portals, we gave them specialized configuration. It's only possible to travel through space by aligning them across the time axis. That meant I, in the past, would still be able to search for portals in the present to connect with. My counterparts in the present, though, would not be able to find me in the past even if they tried. But I couldn't find them, not a single one. Even after checking the portal for its function, I determined that, for all intents and purposes, the portals from the company should have been there to connect with. It was then that I made a terrible realization. The portals in the present didn't exist anymore, or are no longer operational. Maybe the blunder of teleporting the lab caused them to reconsider the rest of using this technology. After all, it was already controversial and had been outlawed in several countries. I wouldn't have been surprised if they decided to cut their losses, but it was highly unlikely that they would have immediately shut down every single portal and left me stranded without notice. Portal technology was still being relied on in several places in the present. In my mind, only one possibility remained: superweapons. Various nations have been using them as bargaining chips for some time. I didn't think the threats had become that serious, but one of them must have launched their weapon and destroyed the majority of Earth. It could have been the result of a malfunction, or perhaps the political situation had escalated. Either way, it was not possible for me to establish any means of communication to find out what had really happened. I could have sent myself back into the present with the right coordinates, but this was a risky endeavor, and I also had to ask myself if it was a present I wanted to return to. Are you sure that if anything was even left of our world, the aftermath or a possible retaliatory strike would take care of the rest? In the end, I had to realize that whichever present did exist was likely not one that was worth returning to. It made my decision all the easier. Instead of returning to a destroyed civilization, I saw an opportunity. Rather than creating bioweapons, I could use the lab to create a new civilization, shaped by my own ideals. So, I had all the necessary data and the most modern methods and machines at my fingertips. Besides, most of the processes had already been automated. Wait, are you saying what I think you're saying? In the end, I still used the lab for what it had been created for, fusing human and animal DNA to create beings that were mostly animal but possessed a greater intelligence that allowed them to learn whatever we wanted them to. As I didn't have any animal samples sent with me when I initially arrived, I collected them from the sources available to me. Automated processes mixed the DNA further across the samples. New abilities were added to, like enhanced armor, flight, and spit weapons. You are telling me what I think you're telling me, to make the new creatures more effective in combat. The result was a number of different species, each tailored and optimized to fill a specific role in a war situation. Hormones allowed me to speed up their growth, and with the lab's learning program, they could be educated in whatever manner I saw fit. My first concern was self-sufficiency. They needed the kind of knowledge that would enable them to come together as their own independent society. Luckily, the AI that automated all the processes in the lab was more than helpful. I unleashed the first generation of my creation, and as the leader, founded our first village. I thought we could really pull it off, and once I saw that they could survive without my guidance and also govern themselves, I knew my plan was a success. So what you're telling me is, when I realized that this new society would eventually be destroyed, I told myself that I would do anything I could to save it. Destroyed? What are you talking about? Haven't you realized where we are? The Chicxulub asteroid is headed for us. Oh shit. With a diameter of over 10 kilometers. Its impact will create humongous clouds of dust, throwing Earth into a literal dark age. They will block out the sunlight for over a year, killing off many species of plants that rely on photosynthesis to survive. As a result, animals that eat those plants will also vanish, as will those who sought sustenance from these herbivores. All in all, 75% of all species will vanish, and in terrestrial ecosystems, all animals heavier than a single kilogram will die. What you're talking about is the Great Dying. That would be 2.2 pounds in case you didn't know. I know the metric system. It will be the end of everyone who lives here, every single dragon you have seen, unless we do something. We? What am I supposed to do? Do you not wish to save them? I came here to help humanity. Now you tell me that this society, this whole world, is also on the brink of extinction? That is the truth. What kind of difference could a single person like me even make to save it? Right now, it's also a single person that presents its greatest threat. Razor? How? In order to stop the comet, we will need as much power as possible. We reclaimed all the generators he stole. Besides, how could a few of them be enough to make a difference for something like this? Don't forget that Razor's still out there looking for more. The truth is, I don't know if all the generators we could gather would ever be enough. We only require enough power to divert the comet's path during a crucial moment, but even if this plan is possible, we will need every single generator we can get. So my goal hasn't changed, I just need to find Razor. Yes, but you'll need my help, and maybe the help of others. You know that Razor is dangerous, and with his gun, he has a clear advantage. Don't think that he wouldn't hesitate to kill you if you were in his way. Then what should we do? Do you know where he is? No, but I think you'll find him soon, and you can count on my support when that happens. I see. There's one thing that still doesn't make sense to me though. The dragons have myths about you, but they don't know or remember you. They haven't seen any humans for who knows how long. How much time could have passed since you created them and now? How many generations could it take to forget? Why isn't there proof of your existence? I don't know exactly how long it's been myself. When I realized what time period I was in, and that my creation was about to be wiped out in the future, I wanted to go to that future and see what they had become. I disabled the portal's time axis safeguards, and thus enabled it to connect with others in different times. This also included the very same portal in the future. With the generator of our lab being able to supply the portal with power for an indefinite amount of time, I was able to travel to any point in the future I wanted to. The entry and end point of the black hole will be the same place, and the same portal, with the way traveled being just along the time axis. Since I can now search for connection points in any time period, I could look for my own portal in the future and pinpoint the moment of its signal stopped. The comet. Exactly. I found that specific point in time and traveled to a future that was as close to that event as I could safely manage. After I arrived here, my escape from the portal's hiding place led to its discovery by the dragons. It and the laboratory were unearthed. Oh. Oh. It's all starting to make sense now. I don't understand how our portal found yours, or why we ended up arriving at this particular time period. The portal you found was no doubt one of my company's. They must have been connected before, so the corresponding data for the connection already existed when you found it. I'm not sure if I could bypass the anti-time travel safeguards though. Was it completely operational when you found it? No, it took a little bit of tinkering. Probably jumping the hardware safeguards in the process. Now consider that connected portals travel along the time axis together. The data for their beginning and end points are adjusted automatically. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to transfer anything from one place in the world to another without also sending it through time. Since these two portals must have been connected at the same point, the corresponding data for the connection between those two portals already existed. When using the same connection without changing any of the data, this would mean that despite the time discrepancy between those two portals, time still progressed linearly for them. I'm not sure I understand. I understand just fine, mostly. Let me try to rephrase that. The portal you found and my own shared connection. However, while the connection is locked to a certain place, which is wherever the portal is at that very moment, it is not connected to a specific time and point in time. For us, the physical machines that are the portals, time passes linearly, and we can't do anything about that. However, for the black holes, this isn't the case. Just as the entry and endpoints can be in different places, they can also be in different times. In order to not send something through time, when we just want to transport something from one portal to another, the portals are anchored together in such a way that the time data is automatically synchronized. Essentially, this means that ever since you arrived in this world, the same amount of time that has passed for you has also passed in the place where you came from. I see, so despite being in different time periods, time still passes linearly on both sides of the portal. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for you to send messages back and forth to each other. If they are not synchronized, the portals on both sides would stay connected not only to a single point in space, but also to a single point in time, thus making proper two-way communication impossible. However, this is only possible through the connection that has already been forged. If we wanted to, we could use our portal to send you back to your own time period, but to a moment before Razor even arrived here. But that would mean there would be two of me, right? Wouldn't that cause a time paradox? I can only tell you that it would work. No one has studied time travel before, though, so if there are any consequences, then I am not sure of them. Most likely, an entirely new timeline would be created. There would be a timeline without a traveler altogether, and in the new one, there would be two of you. That kind of makes sense. This is becoming way too complicated. I apologize. To come back to your original question, I am not sure how much time passed between the time I left my newborn society and now. Since the portal was not designed for time travel, I have no way of knowing how the variables translate to our perception of time. It could have been thousands or even millions of years. How could the portal, or even its power source, still be operational after all this time? The portal receives its power from the generator in the lab. These units were fitted with the absolute best technology we had to offer. It was designed to provide sustainable power completely independently from any already existing network or power lines. It gains energy from many sources: sun rays, Earth's heat and movement, just to name a few. Keep in mind, it had to power a whole laboratory and research station, while also providing the energy required for all of its inhabitants and associated energy expenditures. Taking its power from Earth itself, a deal like this could continue providing power to the lab indefinitely. Speaking of which, why haven't I seen a single dinosaur since I arrived? It seems that the Dragon Society expanded over the whole continent. Many still hunt on their own for sustenance, and as such, the original species they were based on have mostly vanished. As in direct competition, ours proved to be far superior. Also, they have probably taken measures against having big predators roam their cities and villages. Yet while the dragon population has increased tremendously, I have found that by and large, the society as a whole has not changed much. Is that why everything here looks like it was made for humans? I suppose so. The learning program I initially used gave them knowledge about things and how to create them. Yet of course, those are only human inventions and designs. Did they never once stop to think that they should adjust how certain things look? A lot of the furniture and objects I've seen look very impractical for a dragon. I was surprised at that too, but I have an explanation for this phenomenon. Don't forget that their genome was designed by an AI program to make them into effective bioweapons. The idea was to have them indoctrined at a young age. After reaching adolescence, the learning capability would be greatly diminished. This resulted in subjects that would stay loyal and be unlikely to change their designed behaviors. Instincts also play a role. I imagine they are very much at odds with their learned behavior. Instincts in animals never change, and instinctual behaviors will always be there. If a given trait has been programmed into the genome as an instinct, it is not very likely to change, even through numerous generations. We can see the result of this here. While I initially made them learn a certain set of values and knowledge, I found that the expression of those ideas has hardly changed. And after I was gone, each new generation learned from its elders, and much of the initial knowledge and information was retained through all this time. The genome, as a whole, did change, however, which was unavoidable over time. If they had been used as bioweapons as intended, they would have been nothing more than an army of identical clones. While I can see subtle changes in behavior as a result, some traits are still very much present in them. They are content with what they have and don't strive for more. They don't innovate or change, so technology breakthroughs or new inventions are a rarity. It's quite the opposite, really. They very much value tradition and their ways, which have not changed much in all these years. Kind of like that guy, Katsuharu, who didn't want to leave his spot, even though there's a new place where people were going. I see. How much time do we have left to stop the comet? In a few weeks, the comet will pass by the moon, and its gravity field will point the comet's trajectory towards the Earth. This is when we will need to be ready. If we strike then, we only need to minimally affect its path in order for the comet to pass Earth safely. So this is still Earth. It's just Earth millions of years ago. And in a different timeline, I guess? It won't be enough time for the inhabitants of this world to prepare for Razor Steel's our greatest assets. So it's all about raising the generators, isn't it? Indeed. By the way, I fixed the portal in case we need to use it. Did you break it to prevent me from being sent away? No, that wasn't me. Razor better not use it to escape. Trust me, the portal is our greatest asset. I've programmed it with emergency coordinates. If you should find yourself in a hopeless situation and feel there's no other way out, go to the portal. I've made sure only you will be able to use them. I'll keep that in mind. So what's your plan? What do we do now? I will resume my work and you will continue yours. Fine, Razor. The administrator turned to leave. Wait! What's with all the secrecy? Why are you still wearing that mask? Why don't we pool our resources together and you show me your hideout? Don't you think it would be better if you were completely frank with me? No, not now. Well, bye then. A second later, the figure had already vanished into the darkness outside. When I followed, I realized that I wasn't sure how to get back to my apartment. Surrounded by trees and the blanket of night, it was hard to make out where I stood. After wandering through the underbrush, I realized that the lights on the horizon had to be coming from the village, and made my way back. I returned to my apartment without much trouble. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to see how much time had passed. Not having anything left to do for the day, I soon fell into a deep slumber. So the masked figure wasn't Razor. Seems there's nothing for me to do this morning. I guess they don't need me at the police department, not that I mind. So I can either meet with Remy or Lauren. I think I'll meet with Lauren. But I'm gonna go ahead and end here for now. We have learned quite a few things. And I think let me see, I think the last episode I named it The Plot Thickens. This is the episode that should have bared that name. But that's interesting. So I'm wondering if this is still Earth. Is this Earth millions of years ago in the same timeline or in a separate timeline? Because obviously Earth, that traveler that I come from does not have actual dragons. You have myths about dragons, but not actual dragons. And the comet hit and the Great Dying actually occurred. So is this a completely separate timeline now, where the dragons exist, and we prevent the Great Dying from happening. And so this is a parallel timeline that these portals are now connected and travel through this timeline connected to each other at the same time. And that would be very interesting if that were the case. I'm pretty sure I said everything I said before. So yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, time travel is a very difficult thing to get your head around. But I'm gonna go out with Lauren. I'm gonna meet with Lauren in the next episode. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give that like button out, hit the subscribe button too, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.